Greetings Internet, DDA here, and welcome to another decklist video that Random Number Gaming is bringing you. This time we have Conflict Vegeta Level Hop. Now if you follow my channel as well as the UFC Wildcat, you'll notice that not only did he come out with a Conflict Vegeta build, but he also played Conflict Vegeta in Worlds. Now his Conflict Vegeta build is much different than this one. His build is actually a level 1 camp build, and I'll actually be putting a link to that in the comment section below if you want to check out that build. But this build is much different. It focuses on level hopping, getting to the level 3 and 4 Vegeta, and bouncing up and down between the 3 and 4 and ending combat whenever you want. So let's just scan over the list real quick. So you will first notice that this deck contains a lot of ultra rares. So don't fret, because I'm going to be coming out with a budget build that I will release with this video and post it in the comment section. So this deck is super fun to play, has a lot of outs, which is why I think black is the best style for this style of playing Vegeta. So let's get right into the list, guys, and talk about the attacks. So now let's go over the attacks here. So you'll see that this is actually pretty close to a full hybrid build. We got a bunch of physicals in here as well as a lot of energy. So it's primarily energy, but there are a lot of physicals as well. So we're going to start off with 3 of Vegeta's Galick, which is probably Vegeta's favorite card, the new stack. It does 8 life cards, unpreventable, raises you in anger. Starting on level 1 and only gets better as you level. This card has been in pretty much every Vegeta build since his creation, and this build is probably the strongest deck with this card. New named card that Vegeta got is Vegeta's Final Flash, and this card has just shown me time and time again the power that it has. Not only does it raise your anger 2 levels, allowing you to push levels up via anger very easily, but it also has a red restriction style effect attached to it, which is great for us because there aren't many effects in this deck, sans Unleash, that you're going to want to use. Maybe sometimes the Mastery as well, but outside of that, there aren't too many. So chances are this effect is going to very well destroy the opponent much more than hurt you. And also, with the if it hits, you can de-level and discard a random card from your opponent's hand. And that is one of the main engines that we use to drop from the 4 to the 3 and then end combat. So the 4 makes Final Flash unstoppable, guaranteeing the hit effect, and then dropping down to the 3 immediately makes the opponent pass, and then you can get out of combat. So if you're on level 4, Vegeta's Final Flash is actually another combat ender. So we got 3 Assisted Kamehamehas. Probably Vegeta is the person that uses Assisted Kamehameha the best, just because it does the most damage starting from level 1. You know, 6 life cards, very strong, unstoppable, unpreventable, starting on level 1. Just plow through all those orange decks, their defense, their checkup drill strings, plow through just everything, push damage. This deck's primary mode of victory is survival, so 3 Assisted Kamehamehas is pretty obvious here. And I know this is a money card, guys, I know. And that is why I'm going to be releasing a budget build, so check out the comment section below and look at that budget build if you don't have Assisted Kamehameha. 3 I'll Dig Your Grave, great physical attack, just, will randomly stage lock opponents. But the main reason that it's in this deck is for leveling. It actually serves almost no other purpose. Choke is unpreventable already. Assisted Kamehameha is unpreventable already. Galick is as well, and the level 2 makes it so your attacks are unpreventable. So you have a lot of avenues for unpreventable damage. So it's nice to use on level 4 to just make everything unstoppable, unpreventable. But really, it's in here for the leveling, to be able to level up both you and your opponent. Vegeta's level 3 and 4 are probably the strongest levels in the game, I would argue. So if you're level 3 and your opponent is level 3, chances are you're going to win the game. So it's okay to level the opponent. Got 3 chokes in here, and just for pushing damage, this is a kill card. Just like Galick is a kill card on level 4, 9 life cards, unpreventable, unstoppable. Choke is a kill card, 8 life cards, unpreventable, unstoppable. Great card. Plus, it can be unstoppable at earlier levels if they have enough board state. 3 Enraged Blast in here just for the anger, and of course, it's great damage as well. Playful Punch, running this at 3 copies. And I know some Vegeta builds are running this, but I don't see too many running this. And it's an excellent card, especially in black style. It gives you can't use it as a block because you're too strong, but it's still a 5 or 4 or 6 life card attack that's going to gain you 5 stages and lower an anger. So it gives you a little bit of the anger tech and can actually crit on every level of Vegeta. It's actually an auto crit on the level 2 because it does 4 life cards unpreventable with the Conflict Mastery, which is pretty funny if you ask me. A 2 anger lower with the the critical damage as well. It's a great card. Plus, against heavy physical aggro decks, they're not going to be expecting you to play a card like Playful Punch to be able to mitigate some serious damage while pushing some damage of your own. 2 Heroic Dashing Punch. I wanted to say 3 because I would play 3 of them if I could, but probably one of the greatest cards in this deck. Push tons of damage, gain you anger, allow you to combo up levels. Just so excellent. This card is great in any deck, and it's just even better in Vegeta. 2 Blinding Energy moves. The main way you're going to play this deck is by dodging in and out of combat, and Blinding Energy moves gives you a nice little fuel for that as well. Lets you get out of combat so you don't want to be in. That you're on the defensive, you draw poorly. Plus, it does some pretty good damage as well. And late game, it actually can be pretty strong. 6 or 7 life cards with Black Vehicle Toss, which we play at a 1 of. So now I know a lot of people have mixed feelings about this card, but I love it, especially in Vegeta because I know the opponent can counterplay it and have you play Wall Breaker on you, or play, Arm Breaker on you and such, and get this off of you. But as a 1 of, I feel it's justified because Vegeta's going to be dodging in and out of combat. So if your opponent is only getting 1 or 2 actions, is it really worth it for them to throw out that attach card on you? Depending on where you are in the game, they may want to do another action first, and you may just be able to end combat before they even get the chance to get this off of you. And another thing that makes it great is because Quick Blast is our other attach card, and it can actually shuffle into your life deck at the end of combat. So if you're attaching Quick Blast, you can just shuffle them back into your life deck to ensure you be able to attach Vehicle Toss. And I know, I know a lot of people have mixed feelings on this card, but it is something special to be able to do Galick Guns for 10 unpreventable life cards and Assisted Kamehamehas for 8. All right, that's a lot of damage, people. And it's just insane. I've had this on me the whole game. An extra 5 or 6 unpreventable life cards in damage. It's too strong. But yeah, Quick Blast is at 3 because this is an Unleashed build. This is a level hopping build. We're going to want to be able to always fetch a card with Unleashed. I had it at 2 copies at first, but I bumped it up to 3 because I never want to have Unleashed in my hand and me to not have an attached card in my deck. So that's it for the attacks, guys. As you can see, hybrid, we got, 6, 9, we got, 9 physical, 8, 10 physicals, 12 physicals. 12 physicals, 2 energies that cost no stages. So it's actually pretty even, pretty hybrid build. So now, guys, let's go over the events and blocks. All right, guys, these are the events and blocks that we're working with. As you can see, we run a lot of blocks. We run 6 and 6, physical and energy, and then, of course, time is a warrior's tool. And every single block that we play gains anger. And that is by design. We want to level, again, with this deck. Quite often, I can gain 2 or 3 levels via anger every game. And that is primarily because of these blocks. We got 3 knee catches for 2 anger, 3 stops for 1 anger. And the other great thing about leveling via anger from a block is if you level to 3 or 4, you actually essentially get a free action. Because since you leveled on a block, you get to act on your opponent, then your opponent goes, must pass, and then you can pass out of combat or choose to do another action. But blocking and leveling in a Vegeta deck, getting to 3 or 4, activating that pass is unbelievably powerful because it gives you a free action on the opponent. Another pretty cool thing to do with Black Corruption is use the mastery, discard Black Corruption, banish 2, gain the anger, and then level and dodge out of combat. It's a nice unstoppable banish 2 life cards that your opponent pretty much can't do anything to respond to, and then you getting out of combat then additionally. Very nice. I've sealed a few games by doing that with Black Corruption. Very, very good. And then, of course, Black Resistance for 3 endurance and then the additional anger. So I know Black Command was nerfed, guys, but it's still uber powerful in this deck. Discarding with the Master to get 3 anger, just drawing into command early game and getting that just additional anger just sitting on the board for you to be able to very easily level inside combat. If command wasn't nerfed, this deck would be ridiculously strong, so I can see why they did nerf the card. Just really strong, even though it's banished. 3 Unleashed, again, I know this is another card. It's a money card, guys. Check out that budget build, but this is an Unleashed deck. We want to get to the 3 and 4 as fast as possible. The amazing pass abilities, damage mods, and everything. And the great thing about Unleashed is you can go up or down. So if you're level 4, Unleashed is still useful because you can use it to end combat. And I've had a lot of discussions with other Vegeta players about whether or not to play Unleashed. And my thing is, Unleashed is probably the best card in the game right now. And then Vegeta makes Unleashed say you may end combat. So that alone shows you the power of Vegeta with Unleashed. And blue defensive effect, of course, this is not in the deck. This is my Sphere proxy. I do not own spheres yet. We'll get them soon. As soon as I find $100 under a rock somewhere. But I will buy them. And again, check out the budget build. If you want to know what substitute. I mean, certainly if I ever play this in a tournament, I'm going to have to substitute for spheres since I don't have them. But you can see there's no confrontation in this deck. And that is by design. Confrontation is just too slow for this deck. And I would put Sphere at 3 copies if I really cared about events or something in my opponent's hand over Confrontation because of how this deck works, dodging in and out of combat, performing attacks, gaining anger. Confrontation is just a very clunky card in that rotation. It's just very slow to have to open with Confrontation, especially if the opponent enters on you. You want to get in and get out quickly, and Confrontation really doesn't help you do that. That's why it's not in this list. All right, guys, so let's check out the planning cards. These are the planning cards that we're going to be working with. Now, as you can see, we're pretty standard, 2 VTPs, which is great for a combo deck like this one, VTP for Unleashed, VTP for that last final flash that you have in your discard pile to push up in anger or to D-level from 4. VTP for that blinding to seal the game. Just a lot of things you can do with VTP in this deck, and it's just great. 3 black power-ups. Amazing card in this deck. I'd play 6 of them if I could. Just ridiculously strong. And this card, along with Black Command, is the reason I feel that Black Vegeta is the best Vegeta. Because no matter what, when you talk about Vegeta, and if you look at the attacks that we play, we only play one style attack. The rest of the attacks are non-style. So the first thing people mention, and they're like, oh, what about Blue Slide? What about Red Tandem Blast? Or what about, Saiyan Key Burst or whatever? What about all those cards that's going to shut down, 75% of your hand? Well, that's what Black Power Up is for. So, if that happens, just end combat. It just gives you another. So this deck actually has 6 hard combat enders when you consider Earth Ball 7, which is a great one of in here. 6 combat enders. Additionally, with every other card like Unleashed or Final Flash, like I talked about before, that can end combat additionally. I think last time I counted, this deck has 15 potential combat enders. So that's insane to think about. Even more than Tau. So we got 2 black declarations in here, which is great for getting rid of the pesky ally that you don't like, slowing down Dragon Ball decks or something like that. There's not too much on the board we care about because we're doing a lot of unstoppable attacks and things like that. But sometimes there's something that we care about that we want to get rid of, like Visage, for example. And then 2 black searching techniques. Don't use this card too often because it's pretty clunky to use inside combat, kind of like how I talked about with Confrontation. But against decks that do play those cards that shut down freestyle cards like Tandem Attack and the like, you can open up with the black searching technique to really limit the opponent's chances on getting that card on you. So that's it for the list, guys. So now let's talk about the strategy of how you're going to use the deck. Alright guys, so now we're going to talk about how you can use this deck to succeed. There's just a ton of cool things that you can do with this deck, and I love it. It's probably my favorite Vegeta. It revitalized me. It made me actually like Vegeta as a personality, so I suggest that you guys play this deck. I'll teach you how to play it now. So basically, when you're starting out at the beginning of the game, you're pretty weak. You're not very strong compared to most personalities. You don't like to be on level 1. This deck can win on level 1 or level 2, and I have. But 90% of the games, you're level 3, or you're level 2 or 3 in the first combat, 90% of the games. Because just of how many ways this deck can level. Oftentimes, you know, I'll do Unleashed for 1 level and level via Anger. Like if I draw Command early. So basically what you're going to want to do in the beginning is you're going to want to play a little passively. Now, there's basically 3 avenues that you can go with this deck. You can play a little passively and draw into things like Command or Black Power Up. So you can do that, and especially if you draw Command early, that's great for you. Super great. You'll start out very well. Or another thing that, of course, if you draw Unleashed, pretty much you're going to want to enter, even regardless if you drop down a card. Especially if you have a combat ender. So you can just Unleashed, force them into attacking or passing, and then end combat with either Black Power Up or Blinding Energy move or Ball 7. So, you know, if you draw Unleashed early game, just pretty much enter. Other than that, you want to stay relatively passive, not necessarily passive. I have gone aggressive with this deck because it can actually push a lot of damage. So if you draw a hand like Assisted Kamehameha and like Galick Gun or Choke, for example. No, not that. Or Choke. So like these 3 are your power cards right here. So if I would draw a hand of a combination of 2 of these, I might enter. Because the ultimate goal of this deck is survival. So even on level 1, you can push out an insane amount of damage. Choke's hitting for 7. Galick Gun's hitting for 8. You know, just a ton of damage you can push out. So don't be too afraid. I'm not saying play passively. But especially against another aggressive deck, there's almost no reason to enter with this deck unless you see a hand that you really like. Now, you're going to be able to push up to the level 2 very quickly. Level 2 is great, and you could almost just sit here all game with unpreventable damage and that extra anger. The extra anger is going to be able to push you up super quick to the level 3. Once you're level 3, then you're going to start to see the real train of this deck rolling. Everything's doing +3. So, you know, and probably one of my favorite combos to do on the level 3 is open with I'll Dig Your Grave. Because you'll open with I'll Dig Your Grave, it'll do 6 and 3. If they block it, you'll use it again. And if they don't block it, you can just pop up to 4. Pop you both up to 4. And once you're 4, pretty much you're going to win the game. The way that your opponent is going to stop you from winning is stopping you from getting to level 4. If you're level 4, everything that you draw into, you know, this deck plays, I think it was 29 non-styled attacks last time I checked. So anything that you draw into is just going to be hitting like a freaking truck and be unstoppable. Just insanely powerful. So kind of to go back, I do want to talk about, I said there were kind of 3 avenues you can play with this deck on level 1. So I said you can play passively. You can go for the like bomb attacks, which is if you draw these guys, or you always want to push levels. You always want to keep that in mind when you're playing this deck. Leveling is your goal. So if you draw into a hand like Dashing Punch and Enraged Blast, for example, or of course Galick Gun or Final Flash, these 4, I would say, are excellent cards for you, as well as Command, of course. But Command is one of those cards that you really want to draw on a passing hand. You can enter with it, especially with the Mastery, to get 3 anger and level. But I would rather pass with Command and then enter with another 2 anger card to get a level that way. But yeah, guys, I mean, I kind of already went over like the whole jumping from 3. So once you're 4, please do not be afraid to Final Flash down. I know it's a little scary because you're losing the the unstoppable, but you're gaining 2 anger from Final Flash, so then you're already only 3 anger away from going back up to level 4 again. And this deck generates so much anger and so much leveling. I have actually been facing a deck recently. I think I was facing Brawly Saiyan, yes, and Dynamic Saiyan, and then I was able to generate so much anger against him. I jumped up to level 4, down to 3, up to 4, down to 3, and then up to 4 again. So I jumped back and forth between 3 and 4 twice. So insane. Just the amount of control that this deck has in combat, and just the opponent. Like I had some people also message me. They see my list and they're like, "Well, DDA, this deck doesn't play much anti-anger. How do you do against turbo anger decks?" Well, it's very hard for a turbo anger deck to get a foothold on you if you keep ending combat on them. If you enter combat and do 15 life cards to them and then end combat, it's hard for them to level. Ascension can do it the best against you, but Retribution, generally, I have not had an issue with Retribution. Final Flash is a pretty hard counter to Retribution with Crying Drill and then the Mastery itself, as well as just not allowing them to do 90 million actions to you is great. And keep in mind, this deck is hybrid as well. So the infamous, the terrible villain Orange Dismissal, you can get around that by doing things like Choke and Playful Punch and I'll Dig Your Grave and such. So, and don't be afraid to dig up the opponent either. The only thing I wouldn't dig up is probably Ascension. Just because Ascension can, you know, with you ending combat, they still generate anger. They can make you skip and things like that. It's very easy for them to MPPV. But I have dug up Retribution decks all day and been able to easily pull out wins. You know, they'll get to level 4, sure, but then they're going to have to face all of your attacks doing, you know, between 8 and 10 life cards and just being all unstoppable. So that's pretty much it, guys. So I hope you enjoy the list. Like I said, it's very different from what the UFC Wildcat used. I think actually Joey Walter played a similar deck to this one at Worlds. I think he did pretty well too. I think he got, I want to say 18th place or 12th place. He almost top cutted. So very strong deck. You can see our lists are a little different. We compared our lists. They're a little different. I played a little bit more anger than he does, and I feel like that's better because you want to be able to level without Unleashed. But so thank you guys for tuning in. Stay tuned. Hey, check out that budget build. Like I said, I know this deck has, I think, 14 ultra rares in it. So check out that budget build, and I'll show you substitutions for all those. So please don't hesitate to hit that like button if you like this video. And as always, turn your dial to Random Number Gaming for weekly updates for the Dragon Ball Z card game.